Hello everybody, I'm one of the developers for Medieval Kingdoms 1212 AD. I'm just doing a sort of unofficial video. I'm going to be mostly doing this for bug testing, but also be talking about things like unit design, why certain things are the way they are, just a little bit of quips and rants here and there, things that we have in store to talk about later in upcoming future developments, and even things like game design. I'm a 3D artist. I'm also the person who designed the rosters of the Swedes, Norwegians, Scots, and Latin Empire, so if you dislike how those unit rosters haven't been fully fleshed, I'm the one to be blamed. I'll be making this video as a sort of trial. If you guys like this sort of thing, you guys deliberately go out of your way to say like, hey, I really enjoy what you're making. Please make more, and I'll consider it. So pretty much what I have going on here is I came in as started playing as Norwegians. I started recruiting here over in Sweden, and then moved my guys all the way to hit Aarhus and over in the northern part of Denmark. Started a war with the Danes. The Danes were also jumped into a war with the Holy Roman Empire, and they got into a peace treaty with Bavaria, but that's only like one of the states. Moved my fleet from the northern part of like Orkney Islands here to the northern part of Scotland, and worked my way over, and I decided to camp one of my armies after taking this city, and right now they're bumping up. I'm hoping that after I take this city specifically, then I'll be able to go into the positives. So let's just go ahead and start this with a bang. Already have a siege tower. Oh, actually that's right, I'm still in siege. Okay, I gotta take one more turn. So the cities and naval units are still in development. We're hoping to push those through. Do want to have a trebuchet on the works because that's something extremely needed for this mod. I'm honestly surprised that this mod gets more support than it actually does, because I thought this was going to be like something that was going to be easily forgettable, but I'll have to thank CA, a lot of the YouTubers, and my own team for just kind of getting this mod out there, and I am really, really thankful for that. I will go ahead and pay them off. School. Now, the thing we have in mind with this game, or at least for campaign, is that we have 3 tiers in development. So right now we only have tier 1 available, but that's basically 13th century. We want to have it work sort of like similar to Age of Empires 2, where you have this, or like at least with the Romans and Rome 2, where you go through this sort of like Reformation thing. When you go into Reformation, all the units in the previous era will have a free upgrade to the next one, so that like new units that come in through technologies like gunpowder units will be later available, or something that you have to actually personally unlock, and they'll be bumped up into the later era as well. Ooh, cool. I do like mine dry. So we have one tower that's knocked down, which is good. So I will probably... Oh, shoot. Oh, God, I hate that. What? No. Okay. Control click. I am too used to like other editing programs and things that like sometimes I just get my shifts and controls mixed up, and I don't know. I'm a 3D artist, so I'm the guy that makes like a whole bunch of like I made some of the models for this game. So just like whenever I had to like select multiple things, like shift is the automatic thing for me to select. Let's put these guys into a shield wall. Tablemen in here. So one of the things I wanted to design Norway with was that I wanted to be a tough infantry faction. And they pretty much were. Northern Europeans didn't really field as much cavalry, especially Scandinavia. They didn't really, how should I say? A lot of their cavalry comes from German military colonists. Actually, I shouldn't say military colonists. A lot of people that comes from Germany to like settle and colonize into Scandinavia. Like if you're familiar with Stockholm in Sweden, that city was originally medieval German, and a lot of it was that you can blame the Hanseatic League for pretty much a lot of the interesting history that goes around in the Baltic Sea. So, pretty much here I have regular bondir. Bondir are pretty much just translates to farmers. Now, the thing with like Scandinavians, especially Norway and Sweden, not as much Denmark. Denmark a little bit, but these people are still living in a sort of like Viking society. So that means that these guys are free people, and they're not servants to anything. They're not peasants. And another misunderstanding is that people think that whenever people think of like the medieval ages, at least for the later medieval ages, people didn't really do a lot of drafting of peasants, because if you get all of your peasants killed in war, you pretty much sank your entire source of income. So at least in Western Europe, you see a lot of smaller but more highly concentrated professional armies. Bondir instead, you can think of them more as a sort of like not particularly a levy, but a militia of sorts. You can look up their levy or like the Bondir laws and things like that. They're pretty much just like Coast Guard in a way. Tablemen. Now, these guys do look like knights in a way, and they kind of are, but the reason why they don't have heraldry as much is because they are a sort of new... they're pretty much like new nobility in a way, because a lot of the nobility, or the old nobility for Norway, got killed in its own like civil wars. So these guys are actually kind of herdmen in a way, or sort of like the king's retinue. Longbowmen, believe it or not, but longbows are not a glorified English weapon. They're pretty much used all over Europe and even in Scandinavia. And then we have the spear bondir, and then we have the guess. So the thing with the guess is that, actually their Norwegian name would be the Gestjø, but the reason why they're called guess is because they are the people that would unwelcomely enter into your house. It's a joke name, and they pretty much would demand taxes from you. They are commoners, they're not nobility, that are directly under the king's retinue. And you can think of them as like the sort of like secret agents, the FBI of Norway, and they're pretty cool. They're black is their color, and I'm not kidding. But they do everything from espionage missions to guarding the princess. They're considered one of the vanguards in wars. And then crossbowmen. which are basically, in short, just archers. Archers are not supposed to be pushover units that you see in video games. They're actually supposed to be like professional. They are the professional civilian people of the day, because it takes quite a lot to become acquainted with like the bow. You have to develop the muscles for it, so you have to train yourself. It's something other people don't really get or understand quite a lot is that medieval England, if the only thing you really study about is medieval England, they're actually weird compared to the rest of Europe. It's not the longbow that makes them stand out, it's actually their laws that make them stand out. Because you're basically training an entire peasant class to develop war skills, professional war skills. Kind of like think of them as like South Korea or like the IDF of Israel. I mean, these are people that like have to serve in the military, in a sense. Well, actually, I really shouldn't say that. That would probably be that's actually not a very good comparison. But England's kind of weird for that. Northern France, on the other hand, they have a very opposite reaction. A lot of times they totally despise the use of ranged weapons, and it's something you would come across even in Agincourt, is that like a lot of the longbows that they brought over were not in use because the French thinks that like ranged people, ranged units, archers are just a bunch of fucking pussies, and let's see. Kind of wish it was raining, so that's this wouldn't come up in flames. I'm really hoping it doesn't. Yeah, this is kind of making me nervous. Oh. Potting to shut up so I can concentrate a little bit on making sure I hit these guys, because they're desperate. Please waste your javelin ammunition. That's the thing with like a lot of YouTubers, a lot of them don't show these sort of like close-up shots, so you never like get to see the units in action. Oh boy. Look how many javelins are stuck in the side. Alright. So I got units over there. Oh! Hello. That is a very juicy target for knights. Yeah, probably not going to use that siege tower anytime soon. Ooh. There's a reason why I decided to target the Danes instead of the Swedes right out, is because I do have a little bit of a bias towards Sweden, especially because I design units. One of the unit designers decided to do Denmark for me, and I'm not really fond of the way he designed his units, because I feel like some units should be wearing helmets, not really just gambesons. He ignored probably the majority of Scandinavian assets I wanted him to utilize, because his thing is like, oh, Denmarks are kind of German. Okay. I should probably go home and get around the walls as quickly as possible, because it would look really dumb if I lost this battle. And Bombardier are not as awesome as they are. They're not the most capable of taking on an entire garrison of Danes. Thought I set these guys to loose formation. Apparently not. I'm gonna go ahead and hit those crossbowmen. Now, the thing about Scandinavians, especially with the Norwegians and the Swedes, is that they're not peasants really here. Even though like Bondir translates to a farmer, they're actually considered a free people. They still have a little bit of trace of Viking society, and honestly, a lot of them. Both the Norwegians and the Swedes don't particularly modernize until mid-13th century. Norwegians having a bit more success because they had King Magnus, and a lot of the Scandinavian stave churches that you see are because of him. They had a huge period where like the Norwegians started building a ton of churches and things, and they really emphasize into their own sort of architecture. And if you look it up, you'll see that they're talking about the golden age of the Norwegians, or the medieval golden age. Not particularly Vikings at that point. So like when you see like a lot of the Viking games where they have like stave churches, it's actually kind of weird looking because they're not really in the same period. And they really should have their own like halls. You come back here, you come back here. They're still walking. And by the time these guys die off, I think my reinforcements should have arrived. I do want to make buildings eventually. If there's anybody that's like watching this video and things like that, we do really need custom maps for this, because we have this sort of wonky behavior going on. And custom maps would really solve a lot of our issues. Ooh, please. Please capture that dude. And another thing I really dislike about Attila is that the fortifications, especially with the stones, stone fortifications like the towers here, they explode like landmines once you capture them, and sometimes they kill off half of your unit because they do that. And that's something I've been trying to get people forever to fix and change. And let's see in a second what the heck I'm talking about. Half of this unit will die, yeah. Squish. Why? Oh, what? Okay. Choose to shoot at somebody else, which I don't know. I might actually have to withdraw these guys because they're going to start killing their own guys if I'm not careful. Actually, I might put them onto turn off their firing at will and get them to halt, and then I'll send one of the cavalry guys to go and make sure these guys are done for good. And we'll do a full-on rout of these guys. Yeah. Probably don't even need to use the reserves in that army. And I think at the end they have a cavalry unit. Nope. Actually, I have a spearman unit. That's cool. And then they still have those two guys. But I'm going to go ahead and run down the crossbowmen and archers. I think since recent, there's been changes to the archers. I complained about archers being a bit too weak on melee. They have this weird nerf to them. And honestly, archers are supposed to be pretty capable in melee as well. But for some reason, if cavalry hits them, the cavalry can actually get pretty hurt bad from archers, which is not too weird. And I think the problem is, and I had this discussion with my co-developers, that people don't give the cavalry enough time to charge and really smash into people, so that when they do get into engage with the crossbowmen and archers, they're really shocked. And you can actually kind of cycle charge a little bit easier when after a full-on blown charge like this. These guys, I will go ahead and get them to hit the archers there. And I will go ahead and walk these guys up to campus here. Hopefully without running. No running, please. And I think this would get them killed a little bit. Oh, they have a barrier, that's why. Okay. Should go ahead and everybody crowd into the barrier. Yeah. The thing with cavalry is that they're supposed to be a very mobile unit. The moment they get stuck into engagement like this, they should be punished for standing around. They're not a really speedy, tanky unit like everybody tells them, or tells everybody that they're supposed to be. Their strength is really coming at people into a charge and then just completely obliterating people on that charge. They're not something you can like sit there and smash. And these guys, of course, will fall off. What's taking them so long? Originally, I was going to give, actually, full-on support the idea, and even complain about the idea of giving units to Studo, because one of the balances I had for archers were that archers could shoot as often as they would, but if they get caught into a sort of engagement with infantry, and if these infantry have large enough shields, they'll have a sort of majority immunity towards projectiles if the shields are facing towards the archers, so that players who are not paying attention shooting arrows at shield infantry, they'll realize that their archers are having a null effect. And I think that's one of the things you can balance archers and still get and still let archers have a pretty good melee. Cool. Actually, probably run up cavalry right behind them and walk these guys up. Another thing I wish CA did, and is actually something that we decided to utilize in this game, is that we did not want light units to feel underpowered at all, because they really weren't. Instead, we decided to really exaggerate the fatigue in this game. So whenever the units get into an exhausted state, they take they have 0.2 percent, actually I shouldn't say percent, 0.2 of their original stats, so that even the most pushover units would be able to take on like a very highly elite unit that's at its exhausted state. So one of the beneficials of having light units is that they will not tire out as quickly as units that have armor on. And they'll be able to last a lot longer. There we go. In this battle, otherwise, the machine gun turrets would completely obliterate my army. And we decided to make them machine gun turrets instead of sniper nests. That's okay. Yeah. Cool. And occupy.
Ready for battle.
Slowly taking Denmark over, one by one.
At your command.
Forming the Kalmar Union. Give them some public order bonuses. Kicking up. Ooh. I like that. I think somebody made an adjustment there. I have to ask again. Don't really need that. It's good that we're going back into the positives. And then for next technology, I'll go for agriculture. The thing with the tech tree, I'll get back into it. So pretty much right now we only have tier 1, but the idea is that military tech tree, it would take a little bit longer to get through, 10 turns versus the civic. Now one of the things that we haven't planned in mind is that when we do have tier 2 and tier 3 technology, whenever a player hits, the first player to hit the tier 2 technology upgrade for all their tier 1 units to instantly become tier 2, it'll start the little ice age. Basically that's the point when the medieval warm period ends and this sort of ice age begins, and a lot of the fertility would take a hit. When the player when a player finishes researching or unlocks the tier 2 units, that'll start the Black Plague, and that's when pretty much everybody will take a huge hit. I guess maybe depending on the regions and things for that, but we'll have to see. And the idea is that if you do not, you can either try to get to tier 2 units first, or as early as possible, and that's the sort of route you want to go to, or if you want to instead pay attention to sanitation, you can kind of combat the Black Plague and try to get through. You can get through that a lot more quickly and efficiently without taking such a huge loss by getting to the sanitation buildings quickly. So I wanted to have that sort of like strategy or overall strategies of the game, and make people kind of pay a bit more attention to the tech tree. Because I think people in Total War games, they don't really pay too much attention, or there's not really much to like think about other than like, oh, I want to get more units to have more units to play around with, and that's like the only thing they think of when they think of tech trees. So we have Hamburg, and then we have Stralsund. Okay, so we have one more army left. If HRE is playing around with Denmark over there, I might go ahead and send my army that way. I think I have a lot more infantry capable of knocking on Denmark a bit. In this one, I'm probably going to go ahead and recruit 3 more units and settle down there on the border while this gets all taken care of. Repair, 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 repair. Oh yeah, something I forgot to mention, but I wanted fatigue to play a huge part in this game, and I think it's something that's CA, when they designed a lot of the game balance, I think the way to design it is a little bit too D&D and a little bit too favorable on armor, and there's not as much attention paid towards like fatigue. So the only thing we had for that was just the attributes of if a unit has light, they get like a small decrease. So I had to really exaggerate that, and fatigue should be something that's paid a lot more attention to in future Total War games, I hope. Yes, please. And we are running out of money fast. Alright, I'm going to end this faction turn phase, and then possibly end it right here. What's actually kind of funny was that one of our developers doesn't like Medieval 2 music, but a large portion of the team though find the Medieval 2 music pretty, what the heck, negative 4,000. A lot of us found the medieval music pretty nostalgic, so we won out over him. Because he actually found the Attila music a little bit more correct than the actual Medieval 2 music. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end it here, and tell me if you guys actually enjoy this, if you want me to continue making videos like this. Throw me a reply somewhere, and I'll continue this. Alright. Save, and thank you guys so much.